Most people think distorted vision looks obvious. Something dramatic, something extreme, something clearly unhealthy. But distortion rarely introduces itself that way. Most of the time, it feels normal. That is what makes it dangerous. You can live inside a distorted way of seeing and still believe you are seeing clearly. You can misunderstand yourself, misread situations, misinterpret people, and still feel convinced your conclusions are accurate. Not out of arrogance, out of familiarity. Anything repeated long enough starts to feel true. That includes way of thinking, ways of reacting, ways of interpreting life. This is where distortion begins. Not only through lies, but through repetition. Something affects you emotionally once, you interpret it quickly, then life keeps reinforcing that interpretation until it becomes part of how you see everything else. And eventually, you stop questioning it. Not every belief feels like a belief. Some feel like reality itself. That is why distorted vision is hard to notice. You are not standing outside it. You are standing inside it, looking through it. Imagine wearing tinted glasses for years. After a while, you stop noticing the tint. The color starts feeling normal, natural, accurate. Your inner lens works the same way. A person who constantly expects rejection starts seeing rejection everywhere. A person who secretly believes they are not enough starts interpreting neutral situations as proof of failure. A person who has learned to distrust people starts reading distance into ordinary behavior. Same word, different lens. And once distortion settles deeply enough, you no longer react to what is actually happening. You react to what your lens tells you is happening. That distinction changes everything. This is why two people can experience the same conversation and walk away with completely different emotional realities. One hears criticism, the other hears feedback. One hears rejection, the other hears honesty. One sees failure, the other sees information. The external event matters, but interpretation shapes the internal experience. Now, here's the deeper problem. Distorted vision does not only affect how you see life, it affects how you see yourself. And once your self-perception becomes distorted, everything connected to you begins to feel unstable. Your decisions, your relationships, your confidence, your ability to trust your own judgments. This is where many people quietly suffer. Not from reality alone, but from a distorted relationship with reality. Someone compliments them and they dismiss it immediately. Someone cares about them and they struggle to believe it. An opportunity appears and their first instinct is, I am probably not capable. That reaction feels natural to them, not distorted. And that is exactly the point. Distortion often feels normal from the inside. Now, Where does this distortion come from? Not one place, several places working together quietly over time. Past experiences shape part of it. Painful moments, embarrassment, failure, rejection. Those experiences leave impressions, not only emotionally, but mentally. Then repeated interpretation strengthens it. The same conclusion repeated again and again. This always happens to me. People cannot be trusted. I always mess things up. Then environment reinforces it further. The voices around you, the content you consume, the people you listen to repeatedly. Eventually, all of it starts forming one consistent lens. And once a lens becomes consistent, your mind begins filtering reality through it automatically. This is why awareness matters so much. Without awareness, you confuse interpretation with truth. You assume your first emotional reaction is accurate. You assume your assumptions are facts. But awareness creates distance. Distance allows observation. Observation creates clarity. That sequence matters. Without distance, everything feels immediate. And when everything feels immediate, you react instead of examining. This is also why emotional intensity can distort vision further. Strong emotion narrows perception. Fear does this, anger does this, shame does this. Once emotion becomes intense enough, you stop exploring possibilities. You start protecting conclusions. That is why people can become trapped inside perspectives that hurt them, while still defending those perspectives fiercely. The perspective has started feeling like identity. And when identity becomes attached to distortion, clarity feels threatening, not comforting, threatening. A new perspective would require rethinking old conclusions. Rethinking old conclusions would require emotional honesty. Emotional honesty requires humility. That is difficult for many people. Still, clarity begins the moment you become willing to question your lens gently. Not hate yourself, not shame yourself. Just observe honestly. What if my interpretation is incomplete? What if I have been seeing this through an old wound? What if my reaction is familiar but not fully accurate? Those questions open space, and space changes vision. The goal is not to distrust yourself constantly. The goal is to become aware enough to separate reaction from reality. That takes practice, slow practice, honest practice. You begin noticing your automatic conclusions sooner. You begin observing your emotional patterns more carefully. You begin asking deeper questions before locking meaning in place. And gradually, your vision becomes less distorted, not perfect, clearer. That clarity changes how you relate to life. You stop assuming every difficult moment means failure. You stop treating every delay like rejection. You stop turning temporary emotions into permanent identity. Most importantly, you stop living entirely inside first interpretation. That shift is powerful. It gives you room to see more accurately, to respond more wisely, to understand yourself more honestly. And once your vision becomes clearer, life begins feeling different. Not necessarily easier immediately, but less confusing, less emotionally chaotic, less controlled by assumption. In the next part, we bring all of this together, not just how vision forms or how it becomes distorted, but how to rebuild clear vision intentionally, not theoretically, practically. One decision, one observation, and one honest shift at a time.